Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming tonight to the live event, and thank you so much if you're watching on one of our platforms. Finding the Why is a podcast hosted by Tebbs Gallery through Zoom. Finding Your Why is a community of artists coming together to build relationships and disrupt the elite system. It is hosted by Tebbs Gallery for artists by artists, set up by professional artists Sarah Hardy, Tatsy Preem and Kirstie Tebbs, with weekly live streamed podcasts talking everything about art, strong opinions and honest talk from professional artists and guests, from predjudism to bananss duct tape to the wolf to exposés. Tonight is just me and Sarah. Tat is away on business and we wish him massive good luck for this evening. So yeah. Oh no, I'm not pressing the right buttons again.
Have your hiccups stopped though?
Hiccups have stopped, so that's what I'll take the wrong button. So yeah, some of the things that have caught our eye in the news, one of the big ones is in Indonesia. Climate change is destroying the world's oldest animal painting in the cave. A little bit about it is that, well, it is the world's oldest animal painting known at the moment of a warthog pig, and due to salt crystals both in the rock and on the surface due to temperature fluctuations, it's causing the artwork to start peeling off the walls, which is a great shame because it's literally a part of our artistic history. If it's one of the first things drawn on a wall, which used to be our only form of canvas really, and it could potentially be one of the first ever drawings that humanity has ever created, and it's starting to be lost after about 44,000, I think, years.
Yeah, it's amazing because it's one facet to climate change that you don't automatically consider. You know, we kind of look around the environment and we see the impact on the earth, but we forget how this kind of affects such things that we, have been preserved over the years that aren't necessarily kind of embedded in the earth, I guess, that aren't actually growing, that aren't living, but they're still being affected by the structures and kind of the extremes in temperature and how it actually affects the geology and everything, surrounding it. It kind of brings to mind, I spent a lot of time in Zimbabwe, in and around Bulawayo, and I used to go and visit Matopos. So I was quite fortunate enough to go and see some of the cave paintings there. And there's a lot surrounding Zimbabwe. I mean, a lot of it was kind of, it's on geographical, powerful ley lines, and that they run through Greater Zimbabwe. And I mean, they circumnavigate the globe, but, kind of Zimbabwe, they kind of pass straight through. And so a lot of it is, the paintings are quite, they depict hunting and quite crude figures, animals. Some of it is kind of embedded in spiritual belief. And I don't know if you know anything about kind of, Tat would be the ideal person to be here for this session, actually, because he's from Zimbabwe and he kind of gets the cultural thing and the dreams and the significance of dreams. But yeah, it's, kind of seeing these things and kind of, especially in such surroundings. I mean, Matopos is absolutely phenomenal. It's just kind of a landscape of built up rocks and, that kind of, it is just quite a place to go. If anybody ever visits Zimbabwe, it's kind of not just about the safari experience. There's such a diverse cultural aspect to it that's well worth exploring. So yeah, that's
it's really interesting. It reminds me a lot of the Lascaux caves in France, where it wasn't necessarily climate change, it was humans that was causing the deterioration of the artwork. By again, things that you wouldn't think of, such as our breathing was forming condensation onto the artworks. which was causing it to just degrade and peel and wear away, in fact, but not just yeah. And it's insane how you just don't think that these works that have been around for thousands and thousands of years could just disappear and be lost forever, because that is what they are beginning to do, through breath, through climate change, through tourists walking through the caves, to some of the caves even collapsing because of erosion. And it'd be a great shame if all of these ancient artworks would ever be lost.
Absolutely. They're great reminders of what we've come from, how we've evolved. It's kind of like notation of that, but so we're going to go on to the next subject, which is really quite interesting, because we've been discussing a bit about like hidden art and why it's been hidden and why there's no access to this. Now, this is kind of a bit of a I suppose it's kind of been, I don't know, do you think it's been misunderstood in the way it's been portrayed? The Torlonia marbles that were found in Rome, just kind of abandoned and kind of unpreserved. It's incredible, like, was it 620 statues and busts just left to wreck and ruin, that were suddenly rediscovered by somebody who was renting a flat, basically.
Yeah, I have to say, at first, I think I misunderstood it in a sense. I got swamped with the media headlines rather than reading the story. Where initially I was fuming when I saw this. I was like, ancient artworks again, left locked away with complete disregard, no care, just for rat droppings and dust and dirt to collect, to suddenly be found. And it was only when I started realizing the actual complex story of, I think it was literally human error. I would urge you to read a bit about this story, because the museum it used to be a museum where they found it, and it was illegally turned into housing, but no one really minded, until I think it was the reporter, or it was someone the reporter interviewed, was staying in this housing, and they found some steel doors, and you're like, what's behind there? No, you can't go behind that door. But with enough insisting, they managed to open the door with the caretaker going, the prince does not allow anyone to come behind these doors. And rather than like a boiler room or an empty room, which you'd expect, there was all of these ancient sculptures of statues, busts, not paintings, like carvings, just there, deteriorating from neglect. And it literally was because they were forgotten about, and there was such a dilemma on who actually owned them from the family, the Torlonia family, that they've literally just been put aside and forgotten about. So they got cleaned up and restorated. I think about 92 on display in Rome, which have been on and off since coronavirus, but should hopefully be staying in Rome, on display where art should be. Art should be seen. And I think that's one of the things that has caused the outrage and almost the misunderstanding of this story. Because from an artist's point of view, we make art because we want it to be seen. We don't want, well, we would love collectors to buy it and give us money. If you're one of those, please do. But we don't want them to be bought for, as seen as investments, or somewhere to put your money, or just bought for the name and then just put into an attic or a storage room. We want it to be seen and shared with people.
At the end of the day, you produce a piece of art, and it really, if you're so into your your practice, it comes from here, doesn't it? And when you part with it, it's like parting with a baby or a part of yourself. And it's something that, you know, it may be similar, but no other person will have ever created. I don't care whether this ideas are recycled or what. I get that, I really do. But to actually take the time, a part of your life, to create, you know, a piece of work, it's driven by passion and by love, and just kind of that need and calling to, isn't it, really?
True, and I think it's part of the artist's fantasy, because we put so much love and care into these artworks, even to the point of packaging and how we send them out. We believe and we hope that the people who buy it are buying it because they have the same love for it that we do when we make it. And I mean, a lot of the time that just isn't reality, or it is to a certain extent. Like, it's good enough to go onto a kitchen wall, but I mean, it's
not
always
the toilet wall.
yeah, not the toilet wall. But it's just one of those things of being an artist. You never truly know where your artwork is going. You don't know, and you don't know the future of it. You don't know if further down the line your artwork is going to be forgotten about until some random person comes up and asks what's behind the door.
That could be a feature, actually. We could do a weekly feature, what's behind the door.
Ooh, what would be behind the door? My cat.
Who would produce a piece of artwork like this?
Pressing buttons again. So that's on to almost like the next story. So the Elsevier Stem Cell Biology Journal has a new cover to go with their new assistant editor. And this front cover is a Hebrew artwork, which is Turkish marbling, a form of that. And I can't find the artist who's created this artwork. You can't tell if it was actually the journal who's created the artwork or if it was an artist. If you look back to 2014, they had a cover with a snail on, and they credited the group of artists who created it. But with this cover, I can't find it when I'm searching for it. And even if it is from the journal, the person who's created it, or the collective that created it in the journal, should be credited. Artisans should be credited, even if it is the property of the journal. It shouldn't just be their name on it. It should also have the artist's name in the cover, or the contents, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know whether I found the artist, actually. I, as you know, I've had a bit of a day with my notes, and half of them have gone missing. So, but it was really interesting, and it's a really beautiful piece of art as it is. But the name, you have to think, because we've all done it, likely. But in school, I always remember my first ever marbling session when I was a kid. But it's quite a joyful thing, because you never know what you're going to get at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? It just is what it is once you've kind of dipped and you've dried, and it's a really cool way of producing art. But
yeah, I agree. I enjoyed marbling growing up. It was one of those things where it was like, you usually get taught it at the age where you put it in, you pull it out, magic type of thing. It's such an interesting thing, because you truly never know what you're going to come out with. You can design the marbling in the water as much as you want, but there's always going to be smudges and the spilling, and it's so hard to get exactly what you wanted to do. And the way that they've created this abstract work is just beautiful. It is, and whoever's created it deserves every ounce of acknowledgement. And that is just something that can be lacking in the art world. I think So only certain artists who have that feeling that artisans should be credited put it on their exhibition brochures and stuff like that. Because you've got to think, people like Tracy Emin's large sculptures, Henry Moore's large sculptures, they didn't make them with their own hands. They made the models, and the artisans created it, whether it was from a company or a personal artist. But it still has the artist name on it because they have the intellectual property. But makers should be credited because that is their work in front of you, just with somebody else's intellectual property and artwork, their ideas.
It does question the integrity of some artists when they fail to acknowledge that, because the skill that goes into making some of this work is just phenomenal, and to just disacknowledge it, I'm reluctant to say this, but maybe I will. But it's almost a case of ego over just that integrity and that common sense and that sense of value of the other people who've been a part of the grand scheme, a part of the greater equation. So yeah.
I think that's so true. I feel like it really is the ego going, well, it was my idea, so it's my work, no matter who created it. When in reality, yes, it is your artwork. Yes, you came up with the idea, but you didn't actually make it. You came up with the materials you wanted to use, but it wasn't necessarily your skills that created the artwork. It was you're using someone else's, the tool, the mechanism to make your ideas come to life. And it's such a shame, because I think if I was absolutely specialised in a certain area of like glass blowing or creating bronze sculptures and casting, I would want to be recognised. I would at least want them to have the humility. That's not the right word. But yeah, to just go, yes, this is my idea, but this amazing artisan created it for me. Thank you so much. But this is my exhibition. This is my idea, and this is what I thought when I was, thinking of it.
It's funny because if you think in any other art form, say film or writing, you write a book, the editor, the publisher, the author, they're all credited. And the same with a film, the cast, the crew, no matter like how small their job is, it's all acknowledged. But you don't tend to see that so much in the art world. Not as far as I know anyway. I mean, I'm not going to be so generic as to say it absolutely does not happen, because I don't know, and it probably does. There are probably some artists who do, but from kind of what we've seen and the bigger artists, it doesn't seem so prevalent to practice. But yeah.
That's actually a very good point. Yeah, thinking of film, music, and all of those art forms, everyone is credited, and it's not so rife within the exhibiting world. And then we go on to our final news story. I've got to say, this cracks me up every time I see it, because it's it makes me speechless. So
amazing is what it is.
Okay, I've got my words muddled just looking at it now. So London, Sadiq Khan, a part of a £7 million refurbishment of bringing tourism to London, he and his team went and hired David Hockney to redesign the logo of Piccadilly Circus. And what you're seeing now is actually what he came up with. And it's caused outrage in the London artist community, because they feel it's a waste of money. You've just spent so much money paying this highbrow artist to create what they say a 3-year-old could make. type of thing. And also have taken it upon themselves to make replicas of this sort of thing in their own styles. And a lot of London artists, the local artists, are saying, well, you could have paid me probably 1/10 of what you paid David Hockney, but I could have done something much more aesthetically pleasing, something that would bring loads of people in and admire the artwork. But isn't that the point? If people are talking about it, it's free publicity. People are going to want to go to see it because it is just so daft.
Yeah, it's just amazing how we attach such significance to brands and to certain people in the industry. And I suppose as long as that's the way it is, that will be the way it is. And we almost need kind of punctuation marks where we have a bit of a, right, come on guys, spread the joy, kind of let us in. And yeah, isn't that the way change happens? One person cannot lead the way forever. But yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree, because they could have gotten a local artist there to do it. They could have made it a fun challenge during COVID, where they just go, people send in your designs and we'll pick a winner. Or they could have gotten proposals and gotten the community in to create the artwork and had it something that is the pride of Piccadilly Circus. People have come together and created an artwork and made it truly a piece to talk about, rather than that daft thing this highbrow has created. Like, why? But
maybe we could propose that we rock up and do some of our crap art.
Yeah.
The big panel.
We just stick it up there and see what happens.
Yeah.
And we could do it with our the portraits we did of each other in episode 1. Get them from
amazing.
day 1 and stick them around.
You weren't sure who we were, but now you will be.
So yeah, if you guys have any views on what we have shown you today, any of the news stories from the climate crisis with cave paintings, the Roman statues of Torlonia, the Hockney tube station, or the idea of accrediting artisans, do let us know in the comments, send us a message. We will always respond. And yeah, so that brings us on to our book recommendations. Sarah, would you like to go first?
Okay, I will. So I chose The War of Art, not The Art of War. I may review that though in the future, because that is also a very, very good book. This is by David Pressfield, and it basically tackles the creative's ability to procrastinate. I think we've all been there, basically, and there are many, many, many forms of procrastination, down to making too many cups of coffee in a day, to thinking you need to go and do your washing right now when it's been lying there for a week. Talk about addiction, I don't know, I've kind of used exercise as an excuse sometimes, but not just kind of solely that, but yeah, there are many forms of addiction. I think a lot of, being human, we're probably all engaged in one or two, but this has many, many pages on the various forms of procrastination and the brain's way of rationalizing it as well. It's a very well written book. It's very readable and it's very funny. And yeah, procrastination is a form of self-sabotage. And when you're self-sabotaging, generally speaking, it's related to poor self-esteem and not believing that you can actually commit to and fulfill a task in a reasonable manner, or even successfully. So we kind of talk ourselves out of, kind of going all in. We just kind of stand on the edge, one foot in, one foot out, and just kind of go, oh, well, I'll do it tomorrow, or maybe I'll have a go. I'll just do 5 minutes, and I've got something else to do. But then it goes on to talk about how to combat it. And basically, sometimes you've just got to start where you are. It doesn't overcoming perfectionism. I think perfectionism is another form of self-sabotage, because you can put yourself off so much just by thinking this needs to be a certain way. And sometimes the best way to tackle something is to start and let it evolve naturally. You kind of know you've got a bit of a framework, but nothing in this life is set in stone, generally speaking. But it's full of wisdom, quotes, and obviously Stephen's personal experiences. He talks about his King Kong movie that absolutely flopped, which is, we've all had failures, yes, but we've all had successes, no matter how small. And we've got to keep rewarding ourselves for them successes, because the brain will hang on. If you keep feeding it the negatives and telling it what went wrong and where you went wrong, that's what it will hang on to. Whereas if you keep rewarding it, even for the smallest successes, that neuroplasticity. So I think that comes into it quite a bit. It is very, very inspiring. And I bookmarked a page because this just kind of made me laugh out loud. This is in the resistance section, and it says, resistance only opposes in one direction. So that's the subtitle. Resistance obstructs movement only from a lower sphere to a higher. It kicks in when we seek to pursue a calling in the arts, launch an innovative enterprise, or evolve to a higher station morally, ethically, or spiritually. So if you're in Calcutta working with the Mother Teresa Foundation, and you're thinking of bolting to launch a career in telemarketing, relax. Resistance will give you a free pass. Just in case anybody's thinking about that. So yeah, I thought it was pretty funny.
That's the go ahead.
But yeah, definitely worth a read. Absolutely, definitely worth a read. Even if you're not in the creative industry, I think there's always gems and books like that for everybody. So yeah.
It sounds fantastic. I mean, I think procrastination should really be my name. Really, I'm terrible. Yeah, so my book this week is Utopia for Realists and How We Can Get There by Rutger Bregman. I have to give a shout out to Jared Sternick, because he actually recommended this to me this week, and I bought it straight away and I've begun reading it. And I have to say, it is fantastic. It really goes into the ideas of this idea of having money, with being given money from the government with no strings attached, monthly, so you have enough to live. You have enough for a shelter, you have enough for food, water, like cleaning yourselves, and be able to do all the things that we should be able to do and not have to worry about. And it talks about experiments, well, trials, because it's humans, we can't say experiments. That has been done in the past. I mean, it's been done in Canada, Kenya, even in London in 2009 with 13 homeless men. They gave them monthly stipend, no strings attached, just to see what would happen if we gave people enough to live off of. And we say to them, there is no, buy what you want. And it ended up being that most of them only bought necessities that they thought they needed, like a mobile phone, to be able to shave. And by the end of the year, most of them didn't even spend all of the money they were given. They were saving it. They bought, they started renting a place that they could have. They were eating properly. They were actually cleaning and caring about themselves. And it just showed that if we had enough money to live off of, with no strings attached and without being able to work, we will have such a good quality of life. And it will give people the ability to be part-time and stay at home with their kids. They won't miss out on things. Or they could start up their own businesses or do something that they've always wanted to do and upskill themselves. So then they can do what they truly want to do with their lives. And I mean, if you see the news recently, it's actually being trialled in a small part of Wales, but on a system of UIB, where they're trialing care workers of all people, the people who need the actual thank you at this point. Those that they're giving them money and seeing what will they do with this money. What will they do? Will they carry on working? Will they put it on necessities? Will it be savings? And see if it does make us happy and give us the quality of life that we all actually deserve as beings. Life shouldn't be about working, and COVID has shown us this, that the actual truth should be being able to be at home with your family, or being able to live and not have to think about where the next paycheck is coming in from, which actually has been quite a stress, but luckily we've had furlough. And yeah, I could talk for ages about this sort of idea. I mean, I think it would be absolutely brilliant if it was able to finally get past the trial stage in Wales and maybe even spread into Scotland and England. I mean, I have my hopes high. That's all you can have is high hopes.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I mean, COVID's been just absolutely devastating, but I still believe that there are good things that will come of it if people learn the lesson. But that's the crux. If people learn the lesson, and as history has shown, we're not a species that learns very quickly, unfortunately.
We are not. And I mean, you'll always get the people who will take advantage, and it's just seeing how many will take advantage and how many will actually only do do the bare minimum, like be able to have the shelter, be able to have the food on the table, and only need the necessities. So only time will tell. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Right, so shall we do this week we are not doing our roulette wheel. Well, because we are so inspired by David Hockney and London Piccadilly Circus sign, we are going to do the 5-minute challenge on making our own sign. And this week we have music. So I'll bring this up. I'll figure it out next week, but I'll edit it in afterwards when we actually upload it, if that's okay.
I'll just find my paper.
Right. I think for this one I need colours.
I would have put it on my iPad, but my iPad's died. So tube art, yeah.
Yeah, tube art.
Okay, here we go.
We'll see if any of us will be better than Hockney.
Can you whistle?
Did that help? Close. At this point in time, I wish I had crayons.
Yeah, I've got pencils.
Or a ruler. All the pens I don't have a black. I'll use green instead.
It's been ages since I've been to London, so you will have to excuse the crudeness of this. No, I do think it'd be quite a good thing to do a session on cave art in the future. Maybe have a proper feature on it.
I completely agree. There's so much that can be said from our ancestries. The artwork on there is just so embedded into who we are. And I mean, if you think about it, we were at a point where we were pre-civilized. We had our tribes. We were hunting. We were making fires. We were doing the things that we needed to do to survive. Yet we still created art, and it really shows to us that it is embedded into all of us as beings, that creativity is an important part to life, because there was no rhyme or reason for them to do it. They just thought, I see this warthog, I see this bison, I need to paint it, I need to put it on this wall, I need people to know. Or maybe they didn't even think that they needed people to know. They just thought it was something that was important to them and they just needed to put on the walls. And it'd be interesting to find out what they used. If anyone knows what they used to create this artwork, do let us know, because for it to have lasted thousands of years, like, it's absolutely phenomenal. Now you can buy and spend so much money on materials for it to just last 100 years. Yeah. Are you done?
Pretty much.
I'm almost done. Yeah, I'm going to say I'm done. This is not good.
It might, so you never know.
Do you want me to go first?
Go on then.
Can you see that one? So it's called Lunasia Street. I have to give credit to my partner for the name Lunasia. He created it.
Okay.
And it goes, if you don't know, my cat is called Luna. Let's begin with that one. That is why I have drawn a cat. And that is why it's going meow. And in translation, the meow means welcome to Lunasia Street.
Great. I must make a trip at some point.
Yeah, it's great. It's filled with cats.
We should do a full like train line map of like alternative stations. So
great.
You ready?
Yeah.
I got my thicker pen out just so you could see it this week. I know some people might like invisible art, but so this is my hang on, back a bit. No.
There's a great why.
I always hope.
We're gonna have to like photograph this and put it on social. We can see like blinks of it. Maybe that's the part of it. It vanishes.
Maybe you just like guess what it is. We could
Where
have that
are
game.
you?
We could have a game, couldn't we? I obviously can't draw circles anymore, so it's starting to look like a bit of a brioche bun at first. But yeah, my new station is called Piccalilli, obviously. I don't know if you've ever had that delicacy in a jar, but it kind of haunted me at a young age.
Yeah.
So I've turned it into a train station, which you will just kind of keep rolling right through and not stop.
Oh, that's brilliant. It's the place of nightmares. There we go.
So yeah.
Oh, fantastic. If any of you have created your own tube station sign, please send it to us, tag us, let us know. We would absolutely love to see them. And thank you so much for listening and watching our podcast, our episode 3 of Finding the Why. Do make sure to add yourself to our Facebook group, Finding the Why. Follow our Instagram page, Finding the Why Podcast. And even follow us, which is Kirstie Tebbs Art and SarahHardy.art or Vivid Lily.
My best touch.
So thank you so much for coming, and thank you for those who are rewatching this. We find this absolutely great fun, and if there's anything that you would like us to talk about, any activities you would like us to add to our roulette wheel,
Or
we would
even
love to hear.
guests that you might like to see.
Yes,
Because we
any
will be
guests.
introducing guests soon as well.
We have been sending out the messages, and we have high hopes on who we're going to get on here. So thank you so much to everyone for coming, and we shall see you next week for episode 4.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.